Happy Wednesday, everyone. It's Jill, the Wandering Stamper. I hope you're having a fabulous day. Today we are going to make a card that I spent quite a bit of time trying to reformulate. It's the fan fold card that you've probably seen online. Lots of people are making it. But when I went to go make it, because I was so excited about that new cool fold, I realized it was a 5x7 card. And all of the tutorials out there were 5x7 cards. And I prefer to have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Because all of my containers that I hold my cards in fit that size. And space is an issue when you're in an RV. So I like to keep everything kind of the same size. And also it requires a bigger envelope, which I don't have 5x7 envelopes, so I'd have to make one every time I make a card like that. And then also it costs a lot more postage. So I already put a lot of things in my cards and usually have to have extra postage, but the 5x7 is going to take even more. So I decided, you know what, let me see if I can figure out how to do this as an A2 size card. So after much mathing, which is not my wheelhouse, I managed to get all of the dimensions put together so we can create this as a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 finished card. So let me take a moment to turn the camera down and we'll get started, and hopefully everything runs smoothly because I battled with this. But I think you're going to love it and I can't wait to show you. Thanks for joining me. Here are the products we're going to use to create this card today. First off, I'll show you a similar card. This is one of my samples, but see how it has this really cool arrow? Love this fold. So this is what we're making. We're just making a different one. So I'm going to use the Beautiful Motifs and Gallery Blooms suite of products. I think it's called Beautiful Gallery is the whole suite. But I love these stamps. They're so pretty. All of the dies are gorgeous. We're going to use the stamps and dies actually from Beautiful Motifs today, but they do work, or motifs, they do work really well together. And I'm using this die here. And this set is really cool because these 3 dies are kind of decorative. They don't punch completely out. They have like little perforated pieces. So they're great for adding a little texture to your card layers. So love this. I'm enjoying this a lot. Plus I love all of the sayings that go in this, and then these little artistic pieces are great. And of course they go together really well with the Gallery Blooms stamp set. And then we're going to use the gorgeous paper. I believe this is called Beautiful Gallery, and I've pulled these 2 patterns together. I love these patterns. All of the paper is absolutely gorgeous, but I really like this. It's kind of cool. So we're going to use that. And then we're pairing it with the brand new In Color Secret C. So we're going to use the stamp pad and the paper. And then we're pairing that with Lost Lagoon because that color goes really well. And then Basic White. And these colors are also in our Designer Series paper. So we're going to use that. And then also I'm going to use these pressed flower motifs. These are also part of the suite. And these are really cool. They're kind of metal, but they're not as heavy as the kind that we had last year in the annual catalog. So these are a little bit more mailing friendly. The only problem I have is they're heavy and they slide off of this little card here. They do have glue dots on them. So I keep mine in a little plastic bag so that I don't lose them in the RV because I lose things. We bounce around a lot. So that's what we're using. And we'll go ahead and get started. This isn't hard to make at all. The trickiest thing about it is just making sure you cut your layers right. And like I said, this card, everywhere I looked, this card was a 5x7. 5x7s are fine, but I don't care for them personally. And so I wanted to give you the 5x7 option since the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, the A2 option is, I wanted to give you that option since the 5x7s are already out there. All right, so we're going to make our base in the Secret C. So I'm going to grab that, and that's going to be cut 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored at 4 1/4. So it's just your standard card base. So I'm going to cut it at 5 1/2, and then I'm going to score it at 4 1/4. All right. And I'm going to grab that bone folder while I'm at it and give it a good crease. All right, we're going to set that aside. So then the next thing we're going to do is cut 2 pieces. Actually, we're not done with this. We're going to need to create that angle on the front. All right. So once you have your 5.5 by 8.5 scored at 4 1/4, you're going to take the front panel and you're going to lay it back on your cutting tool or your ruler or whatever you want to use. And I'm using my ruler. Now you could flip this upside down and mark it using this little arm here and just put your pencil on it. But I actually have it right on the cutting line, and I'm just going to put a little mark with my pencil here. I know you can't see this because it's on camera, but it is there. So I'm going to mark that 2-inch spot, and then I'm going to match the bottom of the cardstock with the cutting blade perfectly, and then I'm just going to give it a slice. Okay? Now, you want to keep this because this is going to be one of your arrows. So we're going to set that aside. I'm going to erase this little mark just like that. It doesn't really show anyways. So there is the angle, first angle on our card. So we're going to set that aside. Now we want to create the angle, the pieces for the front of the card. So I think I have some scrap. Let's see. We're going to want a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of cardstock, and I'm using the Lost Lagoon. Let me see if I have a piece. This actually, I cut this wrong for another card, so it looks like we can use it. So 4 by 5 1/4. So I am going to use a scrap. All right, and now we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to cut a 2-inch angle. So again, I'm going to put it right where it's going to cut, and I'm going to use my pencil and mark that 2-inch spot right there. And then I'm going to put it back on my cutting blade exactly where it needs to be and give it a slice. All right. And I'm going to set this aside. We don't need this one, so you can use that for something else. So now if you look, that matches perfectly and layers perfectly on our card base. All right. So now the third piece we need is our designer series paper. And this is going to be 3 3/4 by 5. So I'm just going down just a little bit in size, just so everything is graduated. All right, these are great scraps. And again, we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to place it on my cutting line. I'm going to put that little line there. I kind of have to keep my eyeball on it because it is light. I do have a silver pencil somewhere, but I have no idea right now where it is. All right, and we're going to give that a slice, and we're going to keep that. And everything layers perfectly. See? So far so good. All right, so now we want to create our triangles. So we have the triangle from the base, which is this piece, all right? Now, this is almost the same size, so we're not going to use it. We're going to put that aside and use it for something else. So we have our very first layer on the arrow 1, okay? This is the triangle from the base, but we want to layer another color onto it. So we need a piece of Lost Lagoon, and we're going to do 1 3/4 by 5. So again, I'm just grabbing this little scrap I was using a minute ago, and I'm going to cut that 1 3/4 by 5. And now the way this works out, you could actually for the most part make 2 cards, because now we're going to go from corner to corner, and we're just going to slice this. So I'm just matching up corner to corner and giving it a slice. Okay, so you could actually use both of these, so you could make 2 cards at once. All right, so this, if I did this right, yes, layers onto this arrow perfectly. Okay, so now we need to go back to this designer series paper, and I'm just going to use the exact same piece of scrap from the exact same one we already did, and that's going to be 1 1/2 by 4 3/4. So I'm going to cut that at 1 1/2 by 4 3/4. So I just went down just a little bit in measurement. And then again, we're going to cut corner to corner. Now, if you have designer series paper that has a direction, you need to be mindful of how you're cutting it. So, you know, if you don't want to have to worry about it, use a designer series paper that doesn't have any direction to it. So this could be used for another card. So you could make 2 cards at a time very easily. The only thing you would have to do is cut one. Well, actually, no. If you're using making 2 cards, you would have a second one of these from the base. So that works out well. All right. So there's our 3 layers. See how perfectly those worked? All right. So now we need our bigger arrow. So for that, we're going to cut 3.5 by 4 3/4, and we're going to grab that Lost Lagoon again, or the Secret Sea again. And what did I say? That's going to be 3.5 by 4 3/4. So we'll do 3.5 by 4 3/4. You should have seen the stack of scraps I had yesterday from trying to figure out this card and cutting things wrong. I just about made myself go crazy. All right, so now we're going to cut corner to corner again to create our triangle. And then, of course, there's your second one if you want to make 2 cards. All right, so now we want to grab a piece of our Lost Lagoon, trying to keep all my words straight in my head, and that's going to be 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. Ah, of course that scrap doesn't work. Let's see if I have a scrap. It does not look like I have a scrap. So we are going to use another piece. All right, 3 and what did I say? 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. 3, I can't seem to remember, 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. So I'm just going to cut this corner here. Putting this on the 4 1/2 line. I'm turning it. I'm just trying not to cut more than my paper than I need to. So there we go. And we're going to cut the corner again. Corner to corner. Just give it a slice. And a little tip, if you don't want your corners mushed, just put your cutter in the middle and anchor it, and then cut it. All right, so now these should layer together, which they do. All right. And then last but not least, I like to use a different designer series paper to kind of break it up. So we're going to use this shade for the last layer, and that's going to be 3 by 4 1/4. So I'm going to cut 3 by 4 1/4. And you guessed it, we're going to cut corner to corner. Just like so. All right. And so here is our 3rd layer, just like so. All right. So that is that. So now we want to cut our inside pieces. So I'm going to go back to that Lost Lagoon, and I'm going to cut a piece that's 4 by 5 1/4. That's just a basic layer, okay? And that is just going to sit here. Now, if you were using a light piece of cardstock, you could probably skip this and just add your basic white, but I like the contrast on this, so we're going to use that. And then the last thing we need is a piece of basic white, and that's going to be 3 3/4 by 5. Let's see, I think I have a scrap. So 3 3/4 by, oh, wouldn't you know, that is not big enough. All right, let's do it again. 3 3/4 by 5. I love this cutter for the ability to just cut the section out that I want. That's what makes it special. All right, so now on this piece, we're going to do what we did on the front. We're going to mark it at 2 inches, just like so. And then we're going to cut corner to corner because we want to mimic the angles that we got on the front. All right, I'm going to erase that itty bitty mark right there. Okay, that is all of our cutting. So it wasn't too hard. Thankfully, everything worked out. I went back and forth with my measurements a million times. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some stamping. So I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use the word celebrate on the front. So I'm going to do wishing you love and happiness that lasts a lifetime for the front of that. Actually, yeah, I think we'll do that. So I'm going to grab the stamp and I'm going to grab celebrate while I'm in here. And I'm going to grab a block and a block. All right. I usually have these set up first, but I didn't know what I was going to use today, so. All right, let's go ahead and open Secret C. I love Secret C. It's kind of blue, it's kind of gray, it's kind of black. It's aptly named Secret C because it's kind of a secret what it is, that's for sure. All right, I am going to try to get this straight. I know you can't see it, but I don't want to have to redo this. Okay, that looks good. Let's clean this off on the chamois real quick. All right, so that's our inside layer. Now I'm going to just grab a scrap and stamp celebrate on our scrap. Okay, and I'm probably just going to fussy cut that. Keep it easy. Now I could pull out some dies and cut a really pretty tag. This is also a great card to use your more messages. If you haven't seen that one, this is fabulous. It's one big stamp and one big die. So you stamp everything and then die cut everything. And so you end up with all of these pieces. And actually this is in the right color, so I could technically use these. But yeah, I just keep the extra ones in here until I'm ready to use them. But this is a great set to use for this because you don't really need to do a lot to the front of the card. So you can make the inside fancy. All right, so let's just go ahead and take care of this. Got ink on my fingernail. I'm just going to give it a quick little fussy cut. Nothing fancy. And maybe we'll just even add a piece of ribbon to it. Because the fancy of this card is really the fold itself. All right, so that's it. Let's go ahead and put this card together. I'm going to start with the inside just to get it out of the way. And I'm hoping I don't have a clog today. I had a clog in my glue gun yesterday, and I had a heck of a time getting my glue out. So hopefully that's done with that. So I'm just going to layer this on here, just like so. All right, and then it's going to go inside, and I just kind of like to close it just to make sure everything looks good. I love how quickly, oh, look at this. I've still got that little clog. I might have to pull out my, I may have to pull out my glue, my regular liquid glue, which will not make me happy. I have never had a clog in this before, and today there must be one little glob in there, and it just keeps getting. The good thing is when you close this thing, give it a little knock. There's a little pin that goes in the middle, so I'm hoping that takes care of it. There we go. Okay, sorry about the loud noise. Maybe I'll edit that out. All right, so this is getting adhered inside, just like so. Nice and straight. And then when you close the card, you can't even see it, and you could actually stamp here if you wanted. All right, so then the next two layers are here. I love this paper. I think that is what Stampin' Up! Does the best. I mean, I love the stamps. I love all the embellishments, but There's something about this paper, both the cardstock and the designer series paper. Once you use Stampin' Up! Paper, it's like you don't really want to ever use anything else because it's just that good. And the fact that the cardstock is dyed all the way through so that you don't have a white center like you get on so many other kinds of papers. I just love it because your work always looks outstanding. And if you're going to put all this heart and love into making a card, you want it to look good. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and put these layers together for the arrows. Now, when you do these little arrows, make sure you get some glue all the way down to the bottom so you don't have any little pieces sticking up. All right, and then you just kind of manipulate it all until you're happy with where it is. I'm so happy these measurements worked out. I can't tell you how many times I didn't quite have it right, and I kept moving where the cut line needed to be, and I had a headache. I literally had a headache from doing it, but I'm really happy because I wanted to make this card so bad, but I didn't want to make a 5x7, so I was really bummed when I saw it was a 5x7 card. Nothing against 5x7 cards if you like them. They're just not for me. And I thought, you know what? Since the 5x7's out there, I will just figure out the A2 and share that as well. So options are always good, right? All right. Funny story I had while I'm gluing this. I made the prettiest card for my friend Mags in Florida, and I spent a ton of time on it. It was so pretty. Lots and lots of layers. Went to the post office, paid the extra money for the non-machinable stamp. I put the extra ounce on it. They stamped it non-machinable. Like, everything was perfect. Mailed it. After about a month, I just happened to be chit-chatting with Mags, and I said, hey, did you get my birthday card? And she said, no. Actually, I said, did you get any Happy Mail from me? Didn't tell her it was a birthday card. And she said, no, I haven't gotten anything. What'd you send? And I said, well, I sent a birthday card. So she never received it. Here's my clog again. She never received it, and I was kind of bummed, and I thought, well, you know, it happens. But I know I have enough postage, so I know it didn't come back because there wasn't enough postage, because the post office literally put everything on it. Anyways, long story short, last week, after a month, she finally... I put this glue on the wrong side because I'm talking to you. After a month, she finally messaged me back and said, hey, I got your card. It's beautiful, the part that I can see. And she showed me this card. It literally got cut in half. Literally in half. She only received half a card, and she sent me a picture. They put it in the little envelope, you know, that they put it in. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I wish that card could talk because I would love to know how it ended up getting completely cut in half, but I was super bummed. All right, so I just wiped off that ink. I was talking. Shouldn't have been talking. So now I like to go ahead and take this big piece, and I make sure the corner is in the right position, and then this matches up perfectly with this little top corner that we cut. When we cut this slit, it just matches up perfectly right there. So that was kind of my intention with this card. So I'm just making sure my glue is not sticking. And I'm just going to use my little glue eraser and get rid of that little bit of tackiness. Love this glue eraser. All right. So now you're going to layer the next piece on top of that. And then you're going to just have it so none of the pieces stick over the card, and it works out perfectly. All right. So you could glue this down just like this, or you could use some dimensionals and give it some extra pizzazz. So we're going to go ahead and do the dimensionals. Now, remember, the top of your card is going to stick up. So if you want, if it's easier, and I do this for the bottom layer too, just draw your pencil lines on these and you know exactly where not to put the glue. So just like that, all right? So I've got my pencil lines. So I know now where not to put my dimensionals. So I'm going to grab my dimensionals and pop those on. Just like so. I'm going to do one more. And then I'm going to grab a few small ones. And I'm going to make sure you put one down here. And that actually looks pretty good. I'm not going to worry about it. Well, since I took the tab off, we'll just put it right there. And then I'm going to put one more little tiny piece. I'm going to grab my sticky scissors. And I'm going to cut this kind of thin little piece and put it here. Just so that the bottom of my arrow doesn't get mushed. And now I'm going to take all these little plastic pieces off. Paper pieces, I guess. They're not really plastic. Okay. Now, I'm going to just place this. I just kind of put my bottom arrow on first, and then I'm kind of making sure nothing sticks over. And that looks good. And then I'm going to erase any pencil mark. You don't really have to. It doesn't show that much, but I like to. All right. Look how pretty that is. All right. So now, before you came on, I used, where is it? This die from the Beautiful Motifs, if I could just grab it. So I used this flower die right here, and I layered it onto Secret Sea and also a piece of adhesive paper because there's a lot of detail. I didn't want to have to glue this by hand. So when you use that adhesive paper on these pieces, then you're just really, all you have to do is peel off the paper and put it right onto your project. So this has lots of tiny pieces, so you have to be a little gentle. So I'm just kind of gently tearing it away. And then you just have to it's just so much easier than having to, I know it doesn't seem like it, but it's a lot easier than having to use glue, even with my glue press. I'm just trying not to break anything. Normally I would do this off video, but I want to show you. Once you pull these off, they stick so nicely. So I'm just pulling these away. This is super thin stems, so I'm trying not to bend the stems too much. But the good thing is we're sticking the whole thing down. So now the whole thing is sticky. And so I'm going to go ahead and start at the bottom. And I'm just kind of going to weave it around a little bit. So it's right where I want it. So I want that there. And then I'm going to turn it a little. And then I'm going to turn it again. So I have most of it on my arrow. Just like that. So it just adds a little something extra to the card. And I could have probably even put that up a little higher, but I'm happy with it. All right, so that's done. Now we have our little celebrate tag. So I think I'm going to add it right here with some dimensionals. I thought about adding some ribbon, but you know, it looks kind of pretty the way it is, so I don't think I am. I think I'm going to leave it the way it is and do less is more. So I'm going to grab a couple of these little minis. And just keep it simple. There's a lot going on with this paper. So there's that. And let's go ahead and open these up and add a couple. Oh, see, they just pop right off. So let's go ahead and put one here because there's nothing there. And we'll put one here. And maybe one right here. All right, that looks good. Put these back before I end up with them all over the place. So that's it. It was not hard. The hardest thing was me recreating it into the size. But, you know, if you do all your cutting exactly the way the instructions are, you're really just assembling it. Look how pretty. This is a great masculine card or non-girly, non-feminine card, I guess. This is a great couples card, so there's nothing too feminine or too masculine about it. It's very gender neutral, so I like that. So it says celebrate, and it says wishing you love and happiness that lasts a lifetime. So this is a great anniversary card or wedding card. All right, let me show you my other samples. So this is one that I used with the Pretty Florals suite of products. So I used the paper, and then I used a retired builder punch right here. This is that oval one. And then added some of the in color embellishments that are new to the catalog. And it says, thanks so much for thinking of me. So this is a great little thank you card. And really all I did was tie a bow, add a couple of embellishments, and that's it. And it's a super pretty card. So there's the second sample. Here's the same card I just made, but just different color scheme. This uses Lost Legume and Peach Pie. And then I used a different background paper here, and I cut my image out in basic black. And it says, hello, you've been on my mind. And I went ahead and stamped here. So you could emboss this piece. You can emboss this layer if you want. You can stamp on it. So many things you can do to make this different. So there's the third sample. And then, of course, this is the card I showed you in the beginning. This uses the Wildflower birthday suite of products. So I've got the stamps and I've got the papers. Love this paper. This is obviously a very girly card. It says make a wish, happy birthday. And I just fussy cut around it and then zigzag some pretty in pink ribbon to match the pretty in pink paper. So there you go. There's four cards to make. And this is the A2 size fan fold card. So if you don't want that 5x7, here it is as a 4.5 by 5 or 4 1/4 by 5.5 card. Don't forget, I'm going to have a link below to my blog, which will have all of these cutting and scoring measurements so that you can create this on your own over and over and again. I also have a link to my online store, so if you need any of the products listed here, that's an easy place for you to find them. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you don't already, and click that bell so that you get notification of all my new videos. I am Jill the Wandering Stamper. I'm going to go outside and enjoy some fresh air and go see my grandson. And I will see you next week with another video. I hope you have a great day. We'll see you later. Bye.